Did you ever start a project full of passion only to watch that initial excitement slowly fade away as day goes by? Well, you're not alone. Whether it's a new business or creative venture or a personal goal, staying motivated when the thrill wears off can feel like an uphill battle. And that's why in this episode, we're diving into a discussion on why that happens and, more importantly, how you can keep the momentum going when the spark starts to slowly dim. Welcome to Aren't You Crazy, the podcast where we help you crush your creative goals 1 week at a time. I'm Tessia Rasti. I'm your host today. I'm an actor and multi-hyphenate based in New York City with over 27 years in the arts and a passion for mental health advocacy. And joining me are my amazing co-hosts, Erin Elizabeth Reed, a former attorney now thriving as an actor, writer, and director.
Hi.
And Mel Mandara, a successful marketing director who helps creatives make money online doing what they love. And as you can see, we have with us today an incredible guest, David Blume, a director-writer with a passion for nuanced storytelling that is currently finishing his third short film.
I did some films before I moved out to Los Angeles. I was like, I think I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. So kind of going to the theme of what this podcast is today, like the motivation was trying to force myself to do it. I was in class. I was doing it. I was doing it. I was doing it. And I was like, I can't do this. And when I started, I wasn't getting anything a lot. And when I stopped caring and I was like, I'm kind of done with this, I started booking a lot more things. I was like, oh, maybe I can do this. And then I was like, no. I think the one moment was, and this is kind of interesting, I was a waiter at a restaurant and I was like maybe 24, 25. And I ran across this guy and he was like, you an actor? And I was like, yeah, I'm an actor.
Wait, where was this? LA?
Yeah, it was LA. Yeah. And he was like, I am too, still trying to make it. And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, I'm 40. And I'm like, Jesus, I don't want to be 40. Yeah, I don't want to be 40 and still trying to make it. I don't know this guy. Like, I was like, what does it mean? And I had this idea of what I wanted to be. Like, had an idea at like 24, 25. Like, I needed to be at a certain point. And 40 was not that point, like not still trying to make it. And so looking back, I was thinking about it all wrong. But then that was kind of one of the moments where I was like, I need to stop doing this. I don't think I'm going to make it doing that. And fast forward to when I'm 39 and getting back into film, I'm looking back like, God, I was an idiot. You know, not that I wasted those 10 years. I think I absolutely needed those years to get out of it and have some life experiences to come back and be able to write and direct. But a couple things. One, I was in the wrong job in filmmaking. I'm more of a writer-director than that. And I have more control. I needed to have that control. Two, I needed to love the process. And I hated the process of acting. I was just trying to get to the end result. Now I'm just like, I just love the process. And I wake up and I just do the process. I'm happy to do the process every single day. Whatever happens, happens. But it's pushing me in that direction where I want. But it's no longer about the end result, even though I'd like to have an end result. Yeah. But I love the process to that. And I think that's a big, big motivator for people that are in the arts, either actor or writer, director, painter, whatever. You have to absolutely love the process. Otherwise, you're going to lose motivation quickly when things aren't going your way.
Yeah. So it's really funny that you're saying that, because I was reading this book that's called Real Artists Don't Starve: Timeless Strategies for Thriving in the New Creative Age. And it's from author Jeff Goins. And he says a very particular thing about the process and the motivation of the process. Mm-hmm. He says he creates this simile all the time, right? Of like the thriving artist does this, the starving artist does this. So he has like many chapters with those similes. Mm-hmm. And he talks about when you focus on an end result, on something that you have to achieve as a creative goal, you're in the mindset of a starving artist, because you're just looking at that particular goal as the whole capacity of your creative or creativity entity, if you want. Instead, focusing on a portfolio, on building the kind of like the whole spectrum of what your creative voice and insight is, removes the pressure on just like achieving that goal and focusing on that single product, but on the journey itself, on the journey of becoming that voice that you want to put out there in the world. And however many projects come in the way, they're part of your portfolio and they're part of your signature and they're part of your artistry. But it doesn't reduce to just that goal. Kind of like we were talking about in another episode of saying, once you complete that, okay, let's say that I want the Oscar. So when I get there, my career's over?
Right, what comes next?
It kind of reminds me of like a book I've been reading, Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I was actually going to bring that up.
I was thinking that too.
And
there's a point on that motivation too.
Yeah, it's not about motivation. That's what I was telling you guys before, like, excuse my French, but fuck motivation. It's more so about like getting up and doing it despite how you're feeling over and over again. And the way you're describing is like, 1% better each day, but also enjoying the process of it and not so worry about the destination. It's just about the journey, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, exactly. I was going to bring up James Clear, who does Atomic Habits, because motivation comes from action, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be highly organized to be able to get the things done. And I don't do it every single day because it's tough. I mean, you have life. I mean, I have a day job as well right now until I can start getting paid as a director, which is one of the end results.
It's already happened.
Yeah.
It's part of your process.
That's part of my process. But, for the film that I just finished and even writing, like every single day I have to write down what I want to get done that day. Like it's just my brain. Otherwise, I'm not going to get anything done because I am so scatterbrained, a little ADD and when it comes like that. Like if I have to get something done, I have to write down a list and it's like read and write. Like write your film or like write one page or write this or read this book or whatever. So I have to do that every single day. So I wake up. And so the motivation comes from the action. So if you do the action, the motivation, you don't need the motivation because that is the motivation.
Exactly.
You just get up and whatever your process is, you just do it. And then you do it maybe an inch or a foot or a mile or something like that. And then you'll eventually get there because you'll see that you've done more in the past than you need to in the future, The film that I just finished, like I started off with the script and it took me 2 years to figure out the story. And so I was just doing that. And then even though that was kind of the end result of having this one story, I had 4 or 5 different other stories that I was doing. So I was doing that and I was doing other stories, but it was all the same process going to the same end. And then I was also reading. So if I couldn't write, I would read. And if I couldn't read, I'd watch a movie. But watching a movie actively, trying to understand or looking dialogue. So doing all these little different things, it's kind of like a lightning bolt versus like a straight line to my goal. So you're all over the place, but you're still going in the same direction.
Like a graph with different points, but all headed in the same direction.
Right, exactly. So doing those points, doing it every single day, and then understanding if I don't understand something, especially in filmmaking, there's a lot of things I don't understand. I was like, okay, I know I need sound. I know I need color. Like, I don't know anything about it, so let's hire somebody. Let's delegate that so I don't have to worry about it. It's another reason why I sold all my gear. I don't need it. I was like, I hired the right people in the right spot. So all I need to worry about is the story of the actors. And since I have acting experience, just understanding how to direct those actors and be better at it and look at the story and stuff like that. So it's just constantly this circular motion going in that direction.
Yeah. It's really interesting to flip that formula for me now that I'm listening to the input that you're putting. Because instead of like saying, oh, today is the day that I'm going to be motivated. Today is the day that I'm going to do those push-ups.
It'll never come.
Just do them. Just say one push-up. And then you'll have the stamina to do 2 and 3 and 10. And then one day you'll do 50. And that's like just instead of, like you say, action instead of just mental motivation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also like setting up systems in place. So like, for example, you brought up working out. Like if you already have your gym clothes already laid out, it's like the first step. It's like setting up those systems. So I'm very curious to like hear what systems you had in place to like write a script in like 2 years or finish a film. Like what did you do or make it easier on yourself to like want to get up and write or read?
Yeah. So I always start at the end. Like, what do I want to get accomplished long-term, short-term, and kind of today? So I kind of go backwards, right? I had a goal. I wanted to do a film in a year.
And for our listeners out there who aren't in the industry, what is a short film? Like runtime? What does that mean?
Yeah, so a short film is a story that's under 40 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so 40 minutes or less is considered a short film. Feature film is more than 40 minutes, though I would say 41 minutes or 50 minutes is kind of a really short feature film. So you want it to be at least, I would say 80 minutes or longer would be a good feature film. Otherwise, I think it should be too short.
50 minutes is like a short documentary or something. It's like a TV.
It's a TV series.
One TV episode.
Yeah. So, but go back to your question. Yeah. So I reverse engineer. So I would do, first I have to find out what the story I want to do. That was number one. Something that I just can't get out of my head. So once I have that, then I would just constantly trying to figure out what the story is. And so every single day I would just write. And I wrote 5 or 6 different scripts. And I was like, I don't like this. And I'm just kind of doing that. And I would continue to make a list every single day, write a page or write a paragraph or just write, So I work from like 9 to 5. My wife works until 3. We have some time together between I get off work and she goes to bed around 8 or 9. So when I go to bed about midnight. So from 10 to 12 is my time. So I will sit there and try not to get distracted, get off social media, not running, things like that. I would sit in front of the computer and sometimes I would just sit there and nothing would come. But I'm sitting in front of the computer. I'm doing the work.
The first step, yeah.
First step is sitting in front of the computer. Second was like, okay, I have a OneNote, which is like a Microsoft thing that's on all my devices. So I can just write notes in there. And I continue to just write notes, log lines, what ifs, things like that, constantly doing that. And then I'm going on like, different websites and learning about stories, news stories, Reddit, stories or whatever. And it's kind of like just trying to understand like different points of view of what the story should be, doing research, things like that. Then I start to do, I do an outline. I have to do an outline. Some people don't, I have to do an outline and I have to start with the ending. Like, how's this going to end? And then reverse engineer the story from the ending back. I know what the ending needs to be. And then I need to find a starting point and then I fill it in. So it's kind of like a puzzle piece. It's like a puzzle in my head. And sometimes it's middle out. Sometimes it's like, depending on what it comes that day. Mm. So I don't allow myself to be rigid in where the information is coming from. But it's like end, middle, beginning, and middle. Like it's all this different to try to get it together.
This is so interesting. It's like
yeah,
going crazy because like I am so structured, and then the way you're described is like, well, this story. What's the timeline like? It's like,
well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, I don't have a timeline. My goal is to get it done. Once I get it done, then I can look at how can I make this go faster. Because this short film I just did, we filmed. Well, once I got the script, that was in February. We filmed in June. I'm still in post-production. That's a full year for a 20-minute short. Now I'm like, okay, I understand every process. Okay, how can I get this faster? How can I get my writing faster? Where can I shave some times where I can do maybe 2 films a day? Or, not a day, 2 films a year.
You're like, wow.
Yeah, 2 films a day.
Wow, that's ambitious.
Chunking it out. I'm always constantly thinking, how can I be better? Mm-hmm. And this film was supposed to be better than my last film. And don't ask me how I consider it being better. Just deeper story, better story, like longer, more budget, things like that. I just wanted to move people better. Like just like there's these like nonsensical ways in my head of like what's
as a creative better. It's just like we each have our own subjective way of like
But I was like I'm like super structured. Mm-hmm. But from that being super structured is I'm allowing it to not be structured, but it's still structured.
How do you know when it's finished?
I know when it's finished when it just flows. The story flows, and I am not like, if I feel like when you read something, like, oh, this works, and I usually do that. And I know that's kind of hard to quantify, but usually what will happen is I'll finish the script and I'll put it away for a couple of weeks and then read it again, or I'll give it to, after like 10 or 12 revisions, I'll give it to my wife and read it, like, what do you think? And so when she reads it, she's like, oh my God, that was so good. And I'm like, great. Are you serious? Or are you just my wife? I need give me something. And I'll give it to friends and then read it. So, but I have to get to that point of, I think this story is it flows well. Every line is purposeful. if I cut something out and it still works, then that needs to be cut out. It's like there's still those things that you got to go through it. And the way I do that is by layers, right? So when I finish the script, I'll read it looking at the story. I'll read it for one character. I'll read it for another character. I'll read it for the subtext. So it's kind of like an onion, or like you're peeling back. And every single time you're only focusing on one thing. And so when all those start to work, then I think, okay, this is a story that works. That's how I kind of do that.
No.
I'm curious, and this is going back a bit in the conversation, but when you first started describing your creative writing process, and you mentioned about like sometimes sitting in front of the computer screen and nothing coming, not writing anything, a lot of people would consider that writer's block and have real anxiety about it. And I'm curious if you experienced that, or second part, how you stayed motivated to just keep showing up and not let that defeat you.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there was a quote by Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
And you know the director. He filmed Thor Ragnarok and
Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, Jojo Rabbit and
What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows, things like that. Yeah. And he had a quote. He says, "Sometimes writing is sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours and writing nothing." Again, I do a lot of reading, and I do this, and I read about all these other directors and their failures and things like that, just to give myself the confidence to say, hey, I'm going through the same process. So I feel like a lot of times we are too hard on ourselves, and we don't give enough grace to ourselves to say everyone else, even the professionals, go through the exact same thing. Mm. So that gave me permission to continue to show up. Sometimes it just doesn't come. Now, it's hard in the beginning. It's very hard in the beginning when you, let's say, never had a finished script or have never had trying to write. I personally never really written before. I never really read books until I was probably in college. My parents actually had to pay me to read when I was a kid, and they didn't think I was going to go to college.
Wow.
That is a fact. And Mom and Dad, I know I'm talking this story, but yeah, they had to pay me to read, and they're like, we don't think he's going to go to college. I don't think he's going to make it. And then I went and got my master's because I was focused on the wrong things. I was focused on science, and I was good at English. I was just like, no, science is cool. And then once I started to really get into reading, I started reading a lot more. Because ultimately, you have to have life experience to be a storyteller, in my opinion. And I have a lot of life experience. It's just, I want to say I started late. I started when it was right for me. You know, even though I do have experience in the film industry as an actor, stuff like that, I just didn't have the confidence, or just wasn't comfortable just being and doing without the weight of, I need to get it done by this, or I'm too old to do this. And those still creep up a little bit, you know. Yeah. I'm 43, and I'm like, by 50, I want to, be able to have a couple things done, and I have it in my mind, but I'm like, am I too old to be doing this? It's just silly. Should I just
like so crazy? Because I'm at that strange age. I'm at like 29, where it's like
super young.
He's a baby.
Exactly.
For me, it's just like, I don't know if you guys can remember back in the day, it was like 20 decades ago for you guys, but like
20 decades.
Wow, we were born in the 1800s. My name is Margaret.
I look fabulous.
This is my second reincarnation.
But like 29, it's just like, you think you'd achieve or be a certain place by the age of 30. So it's like almost like a midlife crisis that you have. Like
all this order life.
So it's very interesting, like, to hear like from people older than me that they're still figuring it out, and it's like okay, but it's still nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I mean, on those days that I am having a crisis of confidence, I will search first movies of directors over 40, and a lot of them like, oh, this director had their first film at 50. This one had their 60s. This one had 45. I'm like, okay, I still have time. So I still have those thoughts, but honestly, again, it goes back to the question my wife asked me is like, would you continue doing this if you never made it? It's like, absolutely, because I think it's fun and it's my outlet for art. And then it kind of puts me like, okay, it doesn't matter. It'll happen. It won't happen. Who cares? I'm doing what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because the truth is, I feel that the milestones that I've placed on my own life in the past, especially when they're based on what other people were putting out in the world or achieving at a certain age, it doesn't really apply to my life. It's not my life. And their life wasn't mine. I think we use those kind of mile markers maybe to see if our own life is on track somehow.
Comparison.
Like we're heading in the right direction, but the truth is, like, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow.
Thing will be all right. I'm okay. Yeah, no, I'm okay.
Oh, wow. But I mean,
Yeah.
seriously.
No, you're right. I think society kind of likes to put these mile markers on where people are, and I think, you know, like what Forbes has the 40 or 40 or something like that. Or by that, like, oh my God, these people are doing great. I was like, well, if you kind of again peel back the layers, like, well, what got them there? Like, oh, was their parents rich, or were they this or that? There's always these things that happen, and it doesn't happen to everybody. But you also see people that you have no idea who they are, and they're successful, but they've been doing it. They just love the process, and they get there. So you gotta have to like put on blinders.
Yeah.
So just like, my track is my track, and it's my life. So I'll get there when I get there. Can't compare yourself to anybody else.
Yeah.
You know.
That makes me think about I have a project that's called Jewels of Light, and it's a fantasy project very dear to my heart and complex and big. And I used to tell myself, like, I'm gonna finish this fantasy novel in 1 year. It's been 9 years. 9. And now I am beginning to understand what some of the things that I started creating 9 years ago mean, because of the 9 years of experience that came after. Because I didn't have the depth of field in my life experience or in my understanding of relationships and everything, of things that I wrote just because I thought that that was the plot and that was the thing, and like the map, and then the characters go this way and everything. And then things that started getting like more depth that I couldn't understand. But I couldn't understand really. And it's until now that I'm like, oh my God, it could mean this. It could mean that. Oh my God. So it's kind of like there's magic in that, trusting that maybe the timeline doesn't have to be so rigid.
It's a beautiful incubation period. Like each creative project that wants to be born from you is going to start as a seed. And some seeds need incubating for 9, 10, 20 years. Some seeds need
And I'm
3 weeks.
finish it in 15, you know. It was like Lord of the Rings was written in 15 years. So I'm like just not being lazy about it, but also not putting so much pressure.
Forcing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this current film project you're working on, what other challenges outside of, I think you mentioned 2 years it took you to write the script or have the script come together? Have there been any other challenges throughout like the production and post-production phase that you're in now that have been challenging to stay motivated through? And if so, how have you kept going?
This was the first time that I actually had this big of a crew for this film. I still didn't have like a script supervisor, which that was challenging. My next one definitely have a script supervisor. I think I'm gonna have a full crew. My next one definitely production and designer, things like that we just couldn't afford. But once you had the script and you had the producer and we started going through, that was pretty motivating. And you were doing the filming over 5 days and stuff like that. Once it was done, I did my own editing, which was tough for motivation. My cinematographer suggested that I put it away for a couple weeks. I put it away for 2 months.
Okay.
Because I was just so too close to the project.
Yeah.
And then looked at it as new eyes, because I was like, I'm going to edit myself. And next time I think I'm going to hire an editor because too close. It goes back to, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And going back to how can I get this done faster? And it was like, okay, budgeting for an editor, they can get it done in a week because they've never seen it before and they can see the storyboard and stuff like that. And I can get it back. And it's like, okay, I could fix this. But then after that, then it was like color, sound, Foley, and things like that. So the motivation there is kind of a blessing because I can give it away to somebody and then all I have to do is get it back and do that. But then like, you have these meetings and you have like, okay, this is not as, like, it doesn't, I watch the film and I don't see it as when I had it written because I'm looking at the little things I'm looking at this, like the way the actor said this line, or like, hey, we had this scene in there, so it's completely different for me. So, but keep motivated is to continue, would just write list of like, hey, I need to get this done. I need to get this done by a certain date. And it was easier because I wasn't doing the work, but I would convey that to the sound designer. I would convey that to the colorist. I would send it out to the cinematographers, like, hey, what do you think about this edit? Things like this. So it would continue to move, but much slower pace, not as fast as I want it to be, but it kind of picks back up in the motivation now that we're getting so close. I think, I mean, it's the holidays, but over, like, I was supposed to have it done a week ago, but the coloring's done. I just need the sound to be finalized. I have less notes for the sound designer. And so then it's just the credits and then sending it out to film festivals.
Oh my God,
so
you are so close.
I am very close. I am very close. It's just like kind of going back and forth with the sound designer is just like, it's tough because I get frustrated when they don't see what I see. And I'm like, it needs to be like this. And they can't quite, the abstract idea of what I need it to be. The same thing with the cinematographer when you're filming. The abstract idea, their job is to create it concrete from my abstract idea. It's like, I need to do this. I don't have the specific terminology for it. Can you do this? That's wrong. Do it this way? That's wrong. That's better. That's the, doing that. But the motivation kind of goes down when you're doing that, and then the motivation kind of goes back up. But kind of going back to what we were saying, like action makes the motivation. I don't have the action. I just have the people that I'm sending it to. So I'm just kind of waiting and waiting. But in the meantime, I'm trying to write and kind of think of my new script and things like that. So I just kind of, you have to get it out of your mind at that point. Just like, okay, they have it, and just wait. Okay, that's what I need to do. And sometimes I don't want to watch it for the 300th time.
Yeah.
But again, the more you watch it and you do it in layers. Okay, I'm looking at this for this time, this for this time, this for this time. And that's where you come in and like, okay, this is a different movie than when I first was thinking about it, drafted it, because I see it completely different.
That's really interesting to me too, because I had the same experience with post-production from my own proof of concept. And it is, I was very, very adamant about certain things during the production and all of that, which is great because it's your project, right? You conceived it. But then there were so many things that had to change because at one time we were shooting below rattlesnakes. So we had to change it because the rattlesnakes will eat us alive. If they were like, and they were like, oh my God, we're going to change that.
This feels like an Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious of what you were filming.
Yeah, you were filming.
I'm a little concerned.
We were like supposed to be filming in a forest. We ended up like shooting in the desert in Santa Clarita in Los Angeles. So the rattlesnakes were around us. Like I was sitting on top of a nest. So like there was no way of we wanted to do some stunts about someone falling and losing consciousness and flipping the world behind. We didn't have the budget to do that. We didn't have SAG-AFTRA approve that.
You didn't have the budget to do it safely.
Exactly. There were like some moments where I wanted some special effects of like getting out of a necklace, and Rune was like, I'm not going to do that. And you're not going to be able to afford. Yeah, and you're not going to be able to afford an artist that does that VFX. I'm just doing this and this, and this is what I'm offering you. And I'm like, okay, great. So, and then after, when it went to post-production, it took so long. But it was out of my control because it was the only thing that I could afford. It was the time that people were giving me for what I asked, the favor that I asked. And then I had to like just release it and trust that now it's a collaboration. It's no longer my story. It's a story done by everybody else in the team. Well, obviously there were things like putting everything pink and making it look like Twilight instead of like more The Witcher, Lord of the Rings. It's not the same concept. Those were like, for me, like, you're not gonna put everything pink. But then the rest was like, okay, if the light comes out mint green instead of like a darker green, could I stop being so anal about my control and just allow for another artist to put their input? Because you're inviting other artists.
They say there's the story that's written, the story that's filmed, and the story that's edited.
Yeah.
They're three completely different stories.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. My film it's at 19 minutes. When I edited it the first time, it was like 25, 28 minutes. It was only a 15-page script.
Yeah.
But there was like, a quarter page. It's like, the actor comes in and grabs a box and then takes out the ashes and does this, and that was like 3 minutes, and it's only a quarter of a page.
Wow.
Could we had these like, and I'm it's more of a feature mindset for the short, and then my cinematographer was like, you got to cut this out, you got to cut this out, you got to cut this. You're not going to get the film festival. So I'm like, all right, fine. Which kind of brings me back to the control. When I started directing, one of the things that really helped me is releasing control right when I hire the producer, because I find that, and I started, this is kind of my mantra, best idea wins.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that kind of comes from me not necessarily being a strong writer, but just the way that I write. And I'm like, I know that this could be better. It's not going to be a masterpiece of writing, but if there's someone that has a better idea, I know what the story is. I have to know what the story is. I have to know the story is, and there's certain things I will not bend on in the story. But outside of that, I would say best idea wins. And I'll go to the producer, I'll go to the cinematographer, or I'll go to, whomever, the sound designer, like, hey, this isn't working. Like, I think we should go this way. And they're like, I think if we do it this way, it'll say this. And, everyone has to defend their ideas. And that kind of happened a couple times on set for that. I'm like, we're doing that idea. Right. And I think it's everyone's film because they're doing it. Everyone's, adding its collaborative art form. So I was like, if it's a collaborative art form, unless I'm actually like, it needs to be this line, this line, this line, all the way through, and I'm not even there yet, best idea wins. And let's see if we can get this thing done. Then I can be, a hard ass, like later when I'm actually, not that I'm going to be, but I was like, oh, let's do this. Let's have fun.
Yeah, let's have fun. So I'm curious, have you identified the difference between in that motivation when you lose excitement and it goes down?
Mm-hmm.
Have you really identified if it's not burnout instead? Sometimes burnout looks like lack of excitement or motivation. And have you been able to identify when it's that and either or, and how to power through it versus just like saying, I'm not doing this anymore. Let's lock everything. This movie is not going to be completed. Let's move on.
Yeah. So I recently had a little bit of burnout, and I think it was a combination because, being in a unique situation of having a day job and then having to do this at night and then, feeling tired and whatnot. When I do have burnout, I step away completely. And there was like 3 months there where I would just come home, play video games, do other things, but don't even think about anything but that. And it gets to a point where, like, if you step away and you kind of recharge yourself, so I don't recommend like trying to just go through it, the burnout, because you're just pushing off that burnout to another day. You really either got to take a step back or kind of just go on vacation, do something for a week, 2 weeks, a month, however long it takes to say, I'm just going to take a step back. I have other passions I can do. I can play video games. I can go in nature. I can go for runs, things like that. And then you'll be like, okay, there'll be a time where like, okay, I'm bored with the video games. I'm done with nature. And then you kind of go back to, I'm going to have an idea for film. Okay, well, we sit down, I'll write or whatever, or like start doing it. It's like, okay, well, I'm getting back into this. But I think, you have to love the process. I can't just not finish something. Like if I'm having a film or if I'm doing a film or something like that, I got to finish like it. And that goes to starting at the end and working my way backwards because I already know what the steps I need to take. I just need to get those done. The work's already done. I think when you're going to get burnout is like when you don't know what that ending is or you don't know where it's kind of going. And some people can write that way. Some people do write that way. We're like, I'm going to continue writing and I don't know where it's going to end. And I don't know what's going to end. I don't know what's going to end. I can't work that way. Yeah. I got to know what the ending is for the story, or I got to know like what I'm going to do with the film, or what's it going to be, like what my last thing is going to do. And I think what kind of helps with that, if you don't have a timeline,
yes.
Like I want to get it done, but however long it takes me, and then again, how can I do this faster for the next time or whatever. But burnout, I take a step back. I don't do any of that. I give myself that permission to not even think about it. And I think, man, that was so long ago. And I was like, when did I start this? Oh, it was already a month. That's only a month? Oh, cool, I'm back. Oh, it's only 3 months? Ah, okay, fantastic. whatever. I'm back into it.
I mean, there are many ways to do things, right? There's no right or wrong of way of how to do things. But
No.
what you're saying, like, it's really interesting to me to know that you start from the end to the front or to the beginning, and also like maybe setting up what works for you with setting particular deadlines that are very rigid doesn't work. For me, sometimes setting deadlines works because I'm freelancing all the time. So it is very easy for me to jump from one project to others. And then when I look at it, then it's been 9 years, right? And I'm like, oh, I haven't finished it. But it's also part of the process, loving the process.
Well, and that's another reason why, like, that's why I feel I'm suited for feature films or short films. Like, I need that time to get the things done. Like, my goal is to do maybe one feature film a year, or 2 feature films a day. I keep saying day. I don't know why.
That's what you want to do.
I know. I want to do a
Very
feature film a day.
ambitious.
I'm really AI. A feature film every 2 years, or a feature film every year is my goal. And the way my process works, I have to go through. I go about 3 months of trying to think of an idea, another 3 months of building out the idea, and then actual 3 months for writing, and then another 3 months of like trying to get it done. So I know some writers can do things in 12 weeks. So they know that's like the standard for script writers.
Wow.
Of a first draft. I'm not that fast, but then I know when I film, and then I understand the process. To your point about rigid, once I know what I'm doing, then I can have the rigid points, because I know what that looks like. I was like, okay, I can do this because I've done it before, and I know the ways to get it in that timeline. And so every time you do it, it gets easier and easier and easier. You don't need that motivation. It just becomes second habit. And that's the goal, right? Just as like, I don't need the motivation. I just do it.
Yeah.
You know, doing something like a podcast like this, it's not something I could do. like I need more time to think about it. You know, it's just the way I work.
Yeah, it's an interesting process.
It's so interesting to me from someone like, I don't care if you guys are in the film industry. I'm completely outside of it. This is all news to me. I'm more so in marketing, and we just put out content so rapidly, like every day pieces of different content. It's so interesting to see like one project taking months. I can't fathom it.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about marketing, like you're putting things and hoping that sticks, right, every single day, right? Same thing with content creator, like hoping it sticks or hoping it like stuff like that. If you put more thought behind it, and this is just my opinion, if you do less and less, it needs to stick more and more. So that's why you have to put more thought behind it. I think marketing and advertising, things like that, they're like, hey, let's see if this works. Because you have to constantly feed it. And sometimes you'll fall flat, but you're constantly doing it, right? And some people with content creating or short films, they just kind of continue doing that, and they get that high of just kind of finishing it. But sometimes if you want something to stick longer or have bigger stakes, you have to put more time.
Yeah, I completely agree, because like we're in such an age where you consume information and content so rapidly, so you forget it. Like you watch 10 billion videos for the day, and how many will you remember next week?
Right.
But with something like with a film, you want it to stick. You want someone to remember it, so it completely makes sense.
Which is harder and harder these days too, because the exact same thing. People's attention. I feel like it's going to go the other way eventually.
You think there's a
Yeah, the
pendulum
pendulum.
is swinging back?
Every generation has a pendulum that goes one way and then it comes back. I've already read a story about like these kids where us millennials, Gen Z, us millennials, like their kids are like, I don't want a cell phone, I want a dumb phone, whatever. I don't want to be online.
Yeah, they
Right.
put down their smartphone.
Right. I think there's going to be a time where people are like, I want to not be addicted to my phone, or I don't want this content creation. It's not doing anything for me. I want something with more substance. And the pendulum start to swing the other way, and you'll start to see a resurgence of really good films, of really deep and good stories.
Thought-provoking stuff.
Thought-provoking
It's
stuff.
very interesting because, like, I know the binge content, like, back in the day, we had cable, and you used to have to wait, like, a week for each TV episode to come out. And
Yeah.
I used to hate it until, Netflix came out, the phenomenon of having all the episodes at once, and you could just binge watch. But now they're kind of reversing it back again, where they're releasing weekly, and I'm enjoying it. Like,
Yeah.
kind of
Give you
like
something to look forward to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's so interesting.
Give you time to talk to your friends and coworkers about, hey, let's just see the other episode, things like that.
Like with House of Dragons, or like everything's just like everyone's waiting.
Exactly. Delayed gratification. I think when you finally get that thing that you're looking for, your pleasure index is higher because you've been waiting for it.
And also it expands your capacity for like memory, because you since you're looking forward for the next episode, you need to remember what happened in the previous. It was like when you binge the entire season and then they take another 5 years in getting season 2. I completely forgot what happened. But I don't remember anything except for the Starbucks cup in the Game of Thrones, maybe.
Sort. High level.
So those are very high comments. Yeah. Well, just to wrap up, what would be like maybe a resource or a book that really changed your life in terms of like motivation and like creativity and all that you could probably share with us?
Honestly, to bring it down to one book, that's tough. I would say The Atomic Habits by James Clear, I think, is a really, really good book that kind of breaks it down into individual moments that helps to kind of get that motivation and those actions. But I would also say is continue being curious and reading every day. I have 3 different filmmaking books that I read on a monthly basis and 3 different like fiction books that I'm reading right now. And just kind of rotating them out every single month. And I just do a chapter a night of each book. You know, like I know it's 6 chapters, but like,
is there like a specific genre that you're drawn to?
I like thrillers. Actually, well, right now I'm reading Frankenstein by Mary Shelley,
Oh, clap.
the original, only because I was like, they made the story so many different ways. I was like, I want to know what the original story was. Yeah. So I'm kind of on this kick of like reading the original books of
Victorian literature is dark.
It is, and it's hard to read. It's hard to read. I'm like, man. It's like, these are just letters that she's writing back and forth. And I was like, where's they already made the monster. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to read it. Get it done. But I like thrillers, spy, novels, things, those are the type of like novels I like to read into. Like, I like the thrillers, like murder mysteries are cool too.
Is that the genre that you write in? Like, are you reading within your genre or are you reading outside your genre purely for entertainment?
I'm reading outside my genre purely for entertainment. My genre right now is just like family drama, and I don't like reading about family drama. I'm like, oh,
I just like to write about it. So,
listen, we've all had our trauma.
I know. Well, look, there's like one of these stories that I had to get out, and I would love to write I want to do a thriller for my my feature film, but it's got to be different, but the same but different of other ones.
Same. But different, but still same.
So just to kind of come up with that idea. But, family drama is like these couple stories I had to get out. And so I wanted to get out. I don't think I actually have like a genre that I'm married to.
Yeah.
Whatever floats my boat, I'll write.
Once there's a story that you want to tell.
Yeah. I was like, this would be an interesting story. I'll write it. And it could be a horror, it could be a thriller, it could be a family. I don't know. But, just that'd be an interesting perspective that no one's heard before. Right.
Where can our listeners find out more about you if you want or so inclined to share? Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, you're totally fine. So I have an Instagram. It's David L. Blume. It's Blume like Judy Blume, not Orlando Bloom, Blume. So David L. Blume. And then I have a website, bloomstreet.com, which has just my last 2 films I did. It's in its infancy. But you can email me there, follow me on Instagram. That'd be great.
Dave, thank you. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all your experiences and your knowledge with us. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, this was Art You Crazy. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we hope that this brings you a little bit of insight into your own creative processes and like motivations. So this was Tessie.
And Aaron.
And Mel, of course.
Stay crazy.
Stay crazy.